Hello, Sovol. You can see over here I have my SV06. I also have an SV03 and an SV01 Pro. Have it apart a little bit right now. I'm changing some of the linear bearings, and I also took off my extruder. And it's a lot easier to take apart. So what I'm going to do is actually right here, the entry point has a plastic piece in there, and we are actually going to make it a little bit bigger, so when you feed filament in there it doesn't get stuck or divert right into the gears, which is causing a lot of the blocking problems that we're having. So first I unscrew the little lever. I just keep that together, and you can see you can open that. On the back side, 4 screws. You get an Allen key, and we're just going to take out these 4 screws very quickly. And there is also another video how to take the entire extruder apart and all the pieces, including the hot end, the heat break, how to clean the probe. And if you're interested, I can show you all those pieces together. I do not take any of the cables out right now because I'm not going all the way down to the heat break or the hot end, and you can just keep the wires this way. Just be careful. The thermistor wire and the heat break, the red wire which heats up the heat break, are kind of tight. You can take all these out if you want. They're not that hard to put back in. I just keep them connected. There's now 3 screws on the back plate. Again, very easy. Just take all those out. And there are 2 slots on the heat break. We just took out these 3 screws. These 4 are up, and then there's 2 notches. So you can't put it on the wrong way. There's 2 notches that go in here as well. So I just put it in the same orientation is that I took it off. Keep the 4 screws together. Keep the 3 screws together. And we're good right now. Now, there's 2 holes. The screws in here. This is a little bit bigger Allen wrench. You can take these out. Just loosen them up. And I believe these have washers on them. So I loosen them enough and then just let them fall out. Maybe they don't have washers on them. Now, I didn't take that screw out, didn't fall out, it stayed in, but this will, without even taking off the fan, this, and I took my time, but you can apply some pressure, and this just slides out. You can see in here, this is where the gears are. So I took it out slowly so none of the gears came out, but you can see these gears came off of this piece. All 3 of these should be on that piece, so I'll fix that in a minute. Alright, we're at a good spot. Actually, I'm going to take this extruder cable out down here. Yeah, which allows it to come off. The thermistor came out all by itself. I'll put that back in a minute. So once you get this off, you can see there's a little hole down here right above the heat break. So if we took this off, now if I take this silicone cover off and you wanted to remove this, just keep in mind there's two small screws in here that keep the heat break, and you can see the spacing here. Just keep in mind there's spacing. I've actually bought another heat break as well as a hot end, which is the heating block here, with other nozzles which extend it, and there's a way to, you know, lower the probe and make that all work, and you can re-level everything. But you can see right in here, we're going to use a little Dremel and make this hole where the filament goes into that hole. And the difference here is you have such, you know, I can measure that, but you have a little bit of a spacing from the top hole. The filament comes in here and it doesn't catch into that lower hole, and that's where a lot of the gears and the okay, so I'm gonna actually unscrew the hot end. Just slides out, 2 screws, and I actually unplugged this piece. So from the computer board, you're unplugging the red, the thermistor, the extruder wire, and this comes off. So you can see in here, and I pre-drilled a little bit, so I, from the bottom, took my Dremel. You can see here, if you have a Dremel, put in my diamond bit, so triangle diamond, and I kept it on 1 or 2. You just take your time. You can just put it straight down, and it'll open up. You don't have to apply a lot of pressure, just leave it in there for a sec. And open it at the bottom a little bit. And in here, you just want to put it in the entry hole just a little bit. And you're just going to increase that hole just a little bit. And just take your time. You just leave it by an edge. And I just go in small circular motion. And from this angle, because you don't have a straight end, you don't have a straight shot there. So on a diagonal, and you just want to take your time. And actually, this is not a plastic piece, so I do recommend, if you don't have a Dremel, I wouldn't do this. You could use maybe a small drill bit and open it up a little bit. And then you just want to clean it. I'm going to spray in some alcohol and clean that out, dust it off. So I'll dust all that off. And that's about it. And then you want to put it back together. And actually I have a metal tool, which is the clogger.com, that I use. And if you put it in there, you can see clearly. I'm not going to zoom in or anything, but the entry hole down here where the filament's going to feed through is definitely a little bit bigger. It doesn't have to be a lot bigger, but the tolerance to get the 1.75 filament was really tight in there. So if you didn't have it heated up properly, when you're pulling it out, it got stuck on the bottom entry point or the top. So when you put filament in again, it was fighting with even just broken pieces of filament. It wasn't necessarily a clog down in the hot end. So that's all I did there, and you can open the holes a little bit. I'm going to clean this off before I put it back together. The other thing that people have been talking about, and I'll just show you real quick, is you want to, let me see, And you're going to want to do this when it's heated up. But if you get your tool to take the nozzle off, and mine is pretty clean, I cleaned it out, so it should be easy to take off. But if you take the nozzle off and you look closely here when it's on, it is not flush, right? There's a little bit of space here in between the heat block and the nozzle. What was happening is from the factory, the heat break on the top, this is screwed in pretty good. It wasn't far enough down. So you had between the heat break and the nozzle a little bit of a gap, and we were getting, you know, heat creep or clogs that kept happening. So if you haven't taken this apart, I know, you know, everybody can be a little frustrated, but it is worthwhile to get this pretty set with the problems. It should unscrew. I'm not using the best tool here. What the goal is, and again, you don't want that flush. And I believe I've measured this. This is 15 millimeters. Actually, while I'm doing it, everybody's been asking the exact dimensions on the original heat break, because once it gets clogged, it's hard to get this out. And what's interesting is this is 2 pieces, so that piece is 15 millimeters, and I've bought extra heat breaks, so I can always replace these. And I could do another video if anybody's interested on that. But this should unscrew too. So this is probably not the best way to do it, but I actually use vice grips. I wrenched a hole the heat block, and it came out pretty easily. But that is a pretty tight heat break. So I'm going to measure both these pieces. And like I said, the first one, the top of the heat break is 15. I've measured that one before because I had the same problem and it broke off. The bottom piece, this is 12. Yeah, so 12. So altogether 27. But what's interesting is I bought a 27 millimeter heat break, and the way this screws in, I don't think it measures. Now, the diameter that goes into this piece is 7 millimeters. So this slides back in here. So the diameter of this heat break, I also know is 7 millimeters, 6.9. But if you buy anything 7, the whole 7 millimeters. But when you put these two back together before it goes back into heat block, it's hard to get out.